It's been 6 months since the body of Janella Garret was found lying in a ravine just outside Marshall and Logan County. The 15-year-old girl had been badly beaten, raped, and mutilated. Investigators say she died between 9 and 11 o'clock on the evening of August the 27th. Several days later, this man, Michael Newberry, was arrested and charged with her murder. After one mistrial and over 200 days of waiting, the trial finally began a week ago yesterday. The defendant's future rested in the hands of this jury. On Wednesday, the state began calling its lengthy list of witnesses. One of the first people called to testify was John Nair, father of the children Janella was babysitting. Though his 4-year-old daughter was not allowed to testify, Nair said she told him the next day Janella left with the TV man. Yesterday, the defendant took the stand to testify on his own behalf. Remaining cool and calm throughout his testimony, Newberry told his story. He said after he left the Nair residence, he made 2 stops along the way and arrived in Oklahoma City shortly after 11 o'clock. After closing arguments, the jury began its deliberation at 10 minutes to 4 yesterday afternoon. 12 hours later, they returned to the courtroom with a verdict.
State of Oklahoma versus Michael Newberry. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the issues in the above entitled cause, do upon our oaths find the defendant Michael Newberry guilty of the offense of murder in the first degree.
At 1 o'clock today, the jury went into the second stage of the trial. At 4:45, they came out of deliberation with the defendant's sentence, life in prison. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Logan County Courthouse.
Due to the healthy economy of this state, I think the legislature in some form will pass a tax reduction. I'm very hopeful of it. I'm still working on it. One of the most alive possible tax reductions is the elimination of the personal property tax by a vote of the people, and I support that. I continue to support some form of reduction in the inheritance tax, which I consider to be very offensive. And I think those 2 tax chances, particularly the personal property elimination vote, have the best chance of passage.
Clover, normally a sign of good luck. But for the citizens of Shawnee, not so, because this clover is growing where water should be. Look at these rocks. They mark what should be the water line, a line that is used to measure Shawnee's water supply, a line that's dangerously low.
Since January, the lake level has fluctuated 33.8 to 34 and has not risen any appreciable amount. We have installed a conservation measure or a rationing program where we can keep adequate water in the lakes to provide the citizens of Shawnee with water.
Actually, Shawnee has had a less stringent rationing program for some time, but this week the City Commission buckled down. They've enacted what is called Step 3. Which means this kind of water usage is forbidden. Residents are restricted to only 1 hour a week for uses other than household or commercial.
You don't happen to have a quarter, do you?
Which means you can still spend your quarters at the car wash because it's a commercial business. Businessmen will feel the crunch too, though, because they're being asked to cut back 15%. The Shawnee City Commission hopes that the early enactment of Step 3 and Oklahoma's traditional spring showers will provide residents with a wet summer. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Shawnee.
Dozens of transport trucks have been idled at Time, D.C., locked in by a closed fence and effectively blocked off by the men who used to load and drive them. Some 400 workers are taking turns in a picket line in front of the Southside trucking terminal. They walked off the job last night when their Teamsters union contract expired at midnight. The Oklahoma City picket is one of 90 at Time DC terminals nationwide.
Oh, we are definitely on strike, just like the sign says there that they are not going by the general contract of the Teamsters throughout the country.
The Teamsters want a continuation of the old contract. Time DC management wants the union to agree to contract concessions. A base pay cut from around $12 an hour to $7 an hour. Also shorter vacations and fewer holidays. There are only a few employees on either side of the fence who will talk about the strike. Lewis Cobb, a 30-year Time employee, is not afraid to speak up. This contract they're offering, isn't it acceptable?
I wouldn't think so. There's no way you could live under this contract. It'd be, if you signed the contract, you would sign away your job.
Why?
Well, on contract labor, if they say they lay off 20% of the people on just a temporary layoff, with contract labor, they wouldn't have to bring these 20% back on. And then the first thing you know, there would be another 20% gone and more contract labor. Over a period of 6 months, they could have every Teamster gone.
Time office workers refused to comment, saying no spokesman was available. They told us to call the company president in Lubbock, Texas.
Time DC.
May I speak with Hugh Shurtleff, please?
Time President Hugh Shurtleff says the proposed contract labor and contract concessions are not an effort to break the union.
Oh, absolutely not. And I don't know what prompts that question, but on that point, we were not trying to go non-union or become a non-union company at all. We didn't have that in mind at all.
You did not?
Oh, no. Oh, absolutely not.
Your intent was just to cut back the outflow of money.
Well, in order to start breaking even. I mean,
Shurtleff says Time is losing $1 million a month. And if company workers in Oklahoma City and other nationwide terminals cannot agree to contract concessions, the company will go out of business permanently. Larry Otis, Action 4 on the South Side.
The county commissioner scandal surprised a few people, only to the point that an investigation had been conducted. Commissioners and suppliers alike admit the practices they've been indicted on are long-standing traditions. Many say the investigations won't stop them. Few, if any, political scientists have studied the county government corruption. But a political science class at OU decided to give it a try themselves and interviewed around 30 former and present county commissioners.
Like a lot of them, I think they said they would make great county commissioners if they could just relieve the pressure from outside people to let them do their work and have somebody else handle like the paving of roads or the using of county machines.
The students admit that theirs was not a scientific survey, but they say many of the commissioners are bitter about their experiences. While they may admit they were wrong, they feel the other parties involved, like the equipment suppliers, should have received equal billing in the spotlight. They also say if you want to clean out corruption, you can start with the county commissioners, but you should plan to take it a lot higher. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at Oklahoma University.
The drama began at 6:40 this morning when employees of Barnes IGA arrived for work. Employee Buster Shepard was confronted by a pistol-packing burglar when he turned on the store's lights.
When I went through the swinging doors, he had Buster around the neck with a gun to the back of his head telling him to follow him. And I thought it was a joke at first. I said, what the heck? And I seen the old boy, he kept telling Buster to follow him, and I turned and run out the front door and got in my car and called my wife on CB and told her to call the police that there was a robber inside the store with a gun.
After all the IGA employees were safely outside, officers from several police agencies surrounded the store. They thought they had the burglar trapped. At tracking dog was brought in to sniff out the suspect. When the dog indicated that someone was hiding inside the store's attic, the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department's special tactical team was called in. The officers spent nearly 2 hours searching the attic for the suspect. They found evidence that someone had been up there, but apparently he got away before police arrived. Around 10 o'clock, Spencer officers arrested a man in a van about a block away from the grocery store. Physical evidence found in the van points to the man as a burglary suspect. Police theorize the man had an accomplice, but so far authorities have not been able to find him. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Spencer.
The sun was doing its best most of the day, but other the natural phenomenon Oklahoma is famous for prevailed. High winds and red Oklahoma dust joined forces to make Oklahomans miserable. No one had to go far for an Oklahoma history lesson, with shades of the 1930s Dust Bowl. But for some, the winds were more than an inconvenience. Mobile homes all across the state fell victim to the fierce Oklahoma winds. The 60-mile-an-hour winds tore the roof off an Edmond daycare center, and at times the winds gust as high as 78 miles an hour, leveling a cinder block wall at a new construction site. So far, there have been no reports of injuries in the city area from the winds that smashed car windows and made life a little more difficult for firefighters, trying to control blazes like this one, and battling grass fires all afternoon. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
KPLT KTXU newsroom once again, and we do have an official count on the fatalities here in the city from today's tornado destruction. There are 8 bodies thus far accounted for.
Radio was the only means of communicating the tragedy for much of Paris. Residents listened for details on a local station, while emergency crews relayed messages concerning the welfare of missing residents.
While the call's being made to Denver station, do you have any traffic coming into this area?
Some 200 policemen and National Guardsmen also used radios in case of trouble during their watch. But there wasn't any trouble because of a curfew forbidding residents into the area. Only work crews were in the streets, removing fallen trees from the power lines. Damage like this left the majority of the town without electricity, telephone, and gas service. Those without homes were offered shelter by the Salvation Army, but most of the homeless stayed with friends and relatives. So night came after the tornado, black, quiet, and eerie.
But that all changed when the sun came up. The air became filled with the sounds of new beginnings as the people of Paris, Texas began reconstruction of their city and their lives.
Like Janella Garret, she lost the only home she's ever known.
This is God's work, and nothing can be done about it. This is all I've got left, and I'm just going to accept it.
It's going to be hard for Brenda to accept what has happened to her.
My mother and grandmother was killed right there.
How do you deal with something so destructive as a tornado coming through?
It's just very hard. I was just with my mother 5 minutes.
Right before it happened?
And I left to go get my husband, and we was on our way back, and they said not to go that way. And I didn't know nothing about it.
2 more lives were lost in this trailer park, a mother and her 2-month-old baby. This is where their trailer used to be. It now lies in pieces with the other 13 trailers that were in the park. The 2 bodies were found 200 yards away in the trees. Crews fear there may still be 2 bodies in this wreckage. 2 small boys are unaccounted for. Businesses were also destroyed by the tornado. The Paris Lumber and Building Center was hit the hardest. They estimate their damages to be over $2.5 million. The people of Paris, Texas say this isn't the first tornado to come their way, but it was definitely the worst. 8 people died, 200 were injured, and 40 were hospitalized. Let's hope it's the last. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Paris, Texas.
These employees at the Oklahoma City General Motors assembly plant couldn't be happier to be back at work today. They are just the first of more to come.
Check that 34-way connector. See if that 34-way connector is completely plugged up.
Okay, it's plugged now.
Plugged now? Okay, see, that's exactly what this thing was saying. It was saying that the 34-way connector was not completely plugged up.
It's a learning process all over again for these 200 material workers and electricians. More laid-off employees from the first shift will be joining these workers in the coming days and weeks. By the end of April, the entire first shift of 3,000 workers should be turning out hundreds of new cars. It's thought that now is a good time to call employees back to work without worrying about another layoff.
Because now we will have the ability to produce 2 car lines, the A car line and the X car line, and with the closing of a plant in California, we don't feel that'll happen.
Officials will be spending much of their time the next few days just making sure all the parts and equipment they need are arriving on time. Second shift workers must be more patient, because right now it looks like the earliest they will be called back is this fall. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the GM plant.
This is Bella Shaw. The local results should be known Tuesday on the new General Motors contract. UAW officials expect 2,000 of the 5,400 local members to vote. Union officials think the contract will be approved, even though a major provision will not apply to local members, the part guaranteeing income to high seniority workers who have been laid off. Most new workers at the local GM plant haven't worked there long enough to build up that much seniority. The contract also promises to keep some plants open and enables workers to engage in profit sharing. If approved, the contract will take effect April 12th. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the UAW headquarters in Midwest City.
Both of these subjects have ties with a
these agencies working together. I can't say enough good things about the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. They're outstanding.
We will probably be in touch with the Tennessee authorities in reference to Mr. Earley and some statements that we might have in reference to the death of the former sheriff from McNairy County, Buford Pusser, the death of his wife. I said 3 years ago when I took over this agency that we had organized crime in this state. The state was ripe for more organized crime in it, and it's here. And you know, the way I feel about the situation is they can take all the organized crime back to Las Vegas, Nevada. We're not going to put up for it in Oklahoma.
Let me know, okay?
Patrick Henry Earley was arraigned on a charge of conspiracy to distribute methaqualone. I recommended a $20,000 bail, and the judge followed that recommendation. However, the bail question is moot because there's a federal warrant, a federal hold on him at this time for parole revocation, and that is a non-bailable warrant. So he will be upstairs.
The fire at 814 Northwest 95th Street was discovered shortly before 3 o'clock this morning. It was a smoky, smoldering blaze that destroyed the back half of the house and caused smoke damage throughout the rest of the structure. Fire investigators say they aren't sure yet exactly how the fire started, but said they thought it was suspicious, and arson investigators will continue the probe. No one was in the house when the fire was discovered, and firemen could find no concrete information on who, if anyone, lived in the house. but they said it may have been used for storage. The smoke and the condition of the house made the fire a dangerous one for the men fighting it, but firefighters were able to control the blaze without injury. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in northwest Oklahoma City.
The arrest of Pat Earley was coincidental to our trip. Once he was in custody, though, we did go ahead and interview him. He has been interviewed. We're going to do further investigation on what he has said to us, and the feeling of the investigators in Oklahoma City now is that he probably will not be a suspect in this offense.
The police department sent 2 officers out on special assignment today. Their job, to buy groceries for an entire family with $100 raised through donations by the Fraternal Order of Police. Extra care was used to make sure something was bought that could be used by every member of the household. A call came in to police headquarters that prompted officers to start shopping as soon as they could. The caller said she didn't have any food in the house and no money to buy groceries. Police told her not to worry about the problem, they would take care of it. And after just about all the money was spent, police made a home delivery to the house of a very surprised Nettie McBrayer.
I didn't realize, I don't care what people say about the police force, they are good people. I love them. Because I didn't have anything to eat and they brought me some food here. Over $100 worth, and here's the change I have. I didn't have any food, and I didn't have no money. And children came and said, Mom, I'm hungry. So there's nothing I could do.
Police don't always have the money to play Santa Claus for family emergencies, but say when they can, they're always willing to help. Mrs. McBrayer says she plans to tell everyone she knows that police are there when you need them. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in northwest Oklahoma City.
This is the storage room for all parking tickets, whether they be issued by city or airport police. 130,000 parking tickets are issued each year. And up to now, the law said they had to be saved for 5 years in case somebody needed to look at their record. But now the tickets can be destroyed after 1 year in storage. A computer will keep a record of the ticket for all posterity. Municipal court workers say it will certainly free up some much-needed space in their office.
This builds up to over 650,000 parking tickets over a 5-year period. Because of our new computerization, we'll be keeping all of these records automated, the journal tapes, the audit tapes, so we really just don't need to have the physical documents. This is a lot of needed space that could be used for other reasons in the new building.
So if you have an old ticket in here somewhere, it will be shredded up and disposed of, but there will still be a record of it in a computer. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Municipal Court Building.
The students and faculty at Clinton High School arrived for classes as usual, but the smell and the mess from the cleanup was too much, so classes were canceled.
Police believe the Vandals broke into this chemistry room to gain entrance to the school. They then broke into this chemistry storeroom, removing several acids. The principal feels they knew exactly what they wanted.
I think that the acids were chosen because of their destructive power, although hydrochloric is not very destructive by itself.
Besides the hydrochloric acid, missing was sulfuric acid and butyric acid. All three have one thing in common: a horrible smell. The Vandals spread the acids throughout the North Hall, which stunk up the school, but also caused a lot of damage. The chemicals stained the solid oak walls and doors. They'll have to be sanded down and refinished to remove the marks. Those chemicals that drained onto the floors literally ate through the tile adhesive and made them buckle. Cleaning was an all-day job, even with the help of the faculty. The wax had to be stripped and a new layer of shine put down to improve the look of the spotted floor. The hard work paid off. There'll be no more free days off for the students of Clinton High. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Clinton.
I seen this object laying there in the grass, and it kind of looked suspicious to me. So there was another man and his son that was walking up about the same time, and I asked him, and he said, well, it looked suspicious to him too. And about that time, that little kid started to pick the trip wire, whatever that was, laying there in the grass. So I told him to leave it alone. He just kept on, so I put my foot on the wire, on the string there, and then his dad took him off then, and I went and called in.
Since long before statehood, some people have considered private property fair territory for harvesting lumber. Until this week, state law made pirating the pulp no more than a misdemeanor. But now, under the new tree damage law, harvesting trees valued at more than $200 is a felony. The felony limit on other stolen items is only $25. The law may be harder to enforce than others, but the state forestry department hopes it will serve as a deterrent to poachers.
The job that the forestry division has in the state is to encourage wise woodlands management and improving the woodlands, and it is a deterrent to absentee landowners to have timber stolen, and it's disheartening to them to put money into their property and then come back after a few years if they live out of state and find that somebody's come in and cut pulpwood and cut what they had hoped to derive some income from.
The law also concerns ornamental trees. It's not a common problem, but landscape trees do get stolen from private yards or public parks. $200 doesn't buy much tree. As a general rule, trees are worth about $100 an inch in diameter. You almost have to catch someone in the act to get a tree theft conviction. You have to cut a tree to see its distinguishing marks. But lawmakers hope that having stiffer penalties on the books will deter some would-be thieves. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.